Thank you for joining us for this extended coverage on ABC 24+. I'm Pepper Baker. Now, for the next several minutes, we are going to dig deeper into the story that has many in the community talking. Serious accusations that Memphis-Shelby County Schools is destroying documents ahead of a forensic audit. But first, we want to take a step back and try to understand how it even got to this point. So for this conversation, we begin in December of 2024 with a delayed vote to fire then Superintendent Dr. Marie Fagans. According to the lawsuit Dr. Fagans filed in response to her termination the following month, board members broke the law by violating the Tennessee Open Meetings Act when they met in secret to discuss terminating her. In response to the December attempt to the vote to oust Dr. Fagans, county commissioners warned against going through with such a move, passing a vote of no confidence in the board on January 13th. Just over a week later, on the 21st, with prepared remarks and a pre-selected replacement, the board voted 6-3 to terminate her contract. This move triggered outrage in the community and a reaction from lawmakers. During the Tennessee General Assembly's legislative session, Republican Representative Mark White and State Senator Brent Taylor attempted to pass legislation to bring some kind of oversight, either through a local or state-picked oversight board, to the MSCS board. However, both failed because both chambers were not able to reconcile the bills. However, in rare bipartisan fashion, Representative Tory Harris and Senator Brent Taylor passed legislation that aligns school board races with county commission races, forcing several who voted to oust Dr. Fagans to run for re-election 2 years ahead of schedule. However, that wasn't the end of the bills, with both being on hold until next session and pending the outcome of a state-funded $6 million forensic audit of MSCS that was approved by the legislature. That audit is expected to begin by July 17th, with a firm to be selected by the end of this month. So all of that brings us to today, with explosive allegations from Lieutenant Governor Randy McNally and House Speaker Cameron Sexton, accusing the district of destroying documents ahead of the audit, saying, quote, "Hearing Shelby County Schools is destroying documents ahead of the forensic audit. This is a crime," and that the comptroller's office had been notified. MSCS responded to the accusation saying, quote, "We implore those with information related to the alleged conduct to share it with us so that any responsible individuals can be thoroughly investigated and held accountable." When asked about the possibility of the audit revealing misused funds or destroying documents, Representative Mark White told us that those responsible could face prosecution.
Has been said to me, people can be taken to court if they find that there is misdealings going on.
Now I am joined by our panel, ABC 24 political commentator Otis Sanford, and of course, Reverend Kenneth Whalum of New Olivet Worship Center. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
Okay, so the first question I want to get to is, do you think that the accusations have any merit? And if you based on your belief, what is your experience with the board to kind of frame that idea? So go, Otis, I want to start with you.
Well, I have no idea if they have merit. And I'm not sure that Speaker Sexton or Lieutenant Governor McNally have any evidence that the charges are valid. And so I'm saying here today that it was completely irresponsible for Speaker Sexton to put out a social media post saying, hearing that documents were destroyed without a shred of proof, without anything related to that. If he thought, and he was told, I'm told, because I did some reporting on this, he was told by Mark White that this was going on, just to keep him in the loop about what's happening down here in Memphis and Shelby County. And instead of going directly to Jason Mumpower, who is the comptroller, and asking him to look into it, he put it out in a tweet. That is an irresponsible allegation without any shred of proof, and it's shame on him for doing so. But I have no idea whether it's proof or not.
There's a lot to unpack there, but before we do, I do want to get to you, Reverend Whalum. What do you think just about whether these accusations have merit?
Well, I think he probably has heard that someone at the school board is destroying documents. In fact, I remember when this whole tempest started, it started because we were on this set saying that we heard that something was about to go down at the school board. We heard that somebody was going to try to get rid of Superintendent Fagan. So yeah, I'm fairly certain he has heard that documents are being destroyed. I can't figure out why he would make the statement on social media, other than the fact that apparently that's the way the Republicans do it now, because they're following the leader, number 47, who just posts stuff on social media. But it may not be as foolhardy as one might think. For instance, if somebody is destroying documents, then this statement would put a chilling effect on whatever's going down, and it brings eyes to the situation. In fact, I've heard that Superintendent Richmond and others have been really trying to find out the source of the statements about the destroyed documents. I know that that's what forensic audits are for, and we'll find out sooner or later. I can't imagine, I'm like Otis, so I can't imagine why Cameron Sexton and McNally would make this kind of statement if they had no shred of evidence. I really can't.
And Otis, you mentioned in your reporting and kind of asking around about this that Representative Mark White may have tipped it off?
Yes, I'm told that Representative White, just to keep him in the loop, because he is the speaker and Representative White is a member of the State House, to keep him in the loop about what's going on here with the school system and all of that. The forensic audit, Cameron Sexton was involved in getting the money to do that. So he just let him know that that's what he was hearing here in Shelby County. I don't think Mark White intended for this to be blasted out on social media. But that's the nature of what Cameron Sexton does sometimes. He's a flamethrower, and he put it out there, and now he's allowing the consequences to be what they are. I'm just saying that it was totally irresponsible for him to do that. And to your point, Ken, yes, on this set we have said, I've heard this and I've heard that, but what we heard did not constitute a crime. It constituted actions that maybe some board members or other people were taking. What Cameron Sexton tweeted out was an allegation of a crime without a shred of proof that it was, and he impugned someone like Superintendent Richmond or maybe school board members. Which was totally irresponsible.
Which could lead to legal consequences for him.
Absolutely.
Which he should be really sensitive to, because a past Speaker of the House is now about to be sent to prison, I believe, for a similar conduct. But let me remind us why we are here. What got us here is the school board, Memphis-Shelby County School Board, totally ignored the directions and requests from the state level and fired Superintendent Fagans anyway. And now we know that many of the allegations that they used to fire her were not true. In fact, their attorney that night, I'll never forget it. I've never seen Attorney Spence in such a, man, he was in an aggressive, dramatic mode. And the things that he said that night, apparently a lot of them were not exactly legally factual. So maybe we should have just all taken a deep breath and waited. But I think that the light that Cameron Sexton and Ms. McNally have brought are going to end up showing a lot of things that nobody intended for them to show.
Reverend Whalum, you actually perfectly segue into the second question I wanted to ask, because it touches on how Superintendent Dr. Fagans was terminated. So, if her lawsuit against the district about violating the Tennessee Open Meetings Act actually wins, that puts into question everything that the current leadership with Dr. Richmond and all the school board members, all of the actions they've taken since. So I want to ask you, I'll start with you, just what does that mean for the district's credibility when it comes to managing finances?
Well, I don't think the district has any credibility now. I'm talking about the board, and the board represents the district. They do not have credibility based on their past actions. But let me remind us what this is not about. This is not about Rod Richmond. Rod Richmond is a brilliant educator. Superintendent Fagans handpicked him for one of the highest positions in the district. So I hope that the public doesn't get the notion that this is about Mr. Richmond. It is not. And I don't blame him for trying to do what he can to keep the operation running smoothly. But let me also remind us that this is not about just kicking the can down the road. This is not about let's turn the page, there's nothing to see here, because I think there's a lot to see here.
Okay, and Otis, I want to know your thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, I agree with almost 100%, believe it or not, of what Ken just said. And I'm certainly not going to vouch for any credibility with the school board. I'm not doing that. And if there were violations of the Open Meetings Act, it'll come out in court. And the actions that need to be taken as a result of that, whether they're sanctions or whatever, or avoiding decisions, they'll have to live with that. But again, that's to me a different pot than what the people who are the leaders in the legislature have done here by impugning the integrity and even alleging criminal activity without a shred of proof here.
And again, that could lead to serious legal consequences for Sexton. I mean, there could even be defamation charges against him. So again, I really find it hard to believe that he would say that he had heard that without hearing it. I just can't believe that. Now, the bottom line is that the school board just passed a $1.9 billion budget. 25% of our graduates can read on grade level. That means 75% cannot. And we're about to spend $2 billion in a direction that has not proven to educate effectively even half of the children graduating. That's the unfortunate part.
Okay, this is the last question. It might be a little loaded given the time that we have left, but I want to ask, G.A. Hardaway said, Representative G.A. Hardaway said today that this would damage, the accusations would damage the district if they come out false. And of course, as you mentioned with Cameron Sexton, possibly having to face legal charges for that. But I want to ask you, if they're false, what does that mean moving forward? If they're true, what does that mean moving forward for the entire results of the forensic audit, for the state intervention, I don't want to say takeover, and as well as the primaries that could happen for these school board members?
Well, that is a loaded question
Yes.
here, and I'll try to take them very briefly here. If the charges are true, and it needs to be fully investigated, the people who were destroying documents, whether they were shredding them or burning them or taking them, they need to be held accountable if the charges are true. If the charges are not true, the first thing we need is a public apology from Cameron Sexton and McNally, and a vow to them to never do a silly thing like this again. Beyond that, I just don't know where we go with this school board. I supported moving the elections to coincide with other elections because I thought it would produce a higher turnout and people would know who they were electing to a very serious office like school board. Ken served on the school board, and so he didn't get elected on a fluke. Some of these board members may have gotten elected on a fluke. That's what I'm saying. So I'm supportive of that. But again, without any proof of criminal activity here, and if they prove to be false, shame on the speaker, shame on the lieutenant governor. They owe an apology, and I would be looking at a defamation as well.
Wow. So yes, what does that say?
Let's be clear. What they did was and I think they knew what they were doing. They didn't say that there have been people destroying documents. They said we heard, and I think that covers them. The sad part is that we are where we are, but I think the bright spot is that $6 million audit is going to find what needs to be found, and the things that need to be uncovered are going to be uncovered. And hopefully that would lead to educating our kids.
But what he also said was, in addition to hearing, he went on to say, and I'm talking about Cameron Sexton, he went on to say that the persons responsible will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law.
Yeah.
That goes a little bit beyond just hearing something. He is making the accusation that it did happen when he says that. I don't remember him saying if true. He just said people would be held responsible for that.
Well, I think that's in line with the audit. If that's what the audit finds, then certainly they're going to be prosecuted.
Well, fine, and let's do the audit. I mean, the $6 million has been appropriated.
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money for an audit.
That's a
I
lot
wish
of
I was an auditor. I'll put it that way.
I will say it just feels like this is even more tense between the state and local officials here, especially when
Oh,
it
you
comes to
can't
the
get
school
any
board.
more
So,
tense than this right now.
thank you both for being here. I always
Thank you.
appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us on 24 Plus. We are going to have much more coverage of the accusations against MSCS, so please be sure to follow us on 24 Plus, abc24.com, and all of our ABC 24 newscasts. Thank you.
Continue with us and watch free now on the 24 Plus app everywhere you stream.